Welcome to the second episode in my mini-series Teaching Music with Minecraft. Each week I'm choosing one popular Minecraft music disc to highlight, and this week it is Pigstep by Lena Raine. Now the purpose of these videos is to give you guys some ideas of fun activities that you can do centered around the music of Minecraft, but we're making sure that they are both fun and educational, and just a really great way for your kids at home or your students to practice musical skills. If you haven't yet watched the first episode based on Other Side Music Disc, I will go ahead and put a link to it up here so you can check that out. And I did also want to mention that neither of these Minecraft recordings will actually be in my videos because I'm just here sharing ideas. However, you can find links to those certain songs in the video description below. And while you're there, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. All right, let's jump into the first rhythm activity that we can do with Pigstep. So in episode 1, I introduced the concept of a rhythmic ostinato, which simply means a short rhythm pattern that we hear getting repeated over and over throughout the music. So especially if you listen to the first minute or so of Pigstep during the introduction part, see if you can learn to recognize this rhythmic ostinato. The rhythm pattern looks like this. 7 quarter notes followed by a set of 16th notes. So if you prefer counting those rhythms, it would go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 y anda. Or if you prefer teaching actual rhythm syllables, then you could teach it this way. Ta, 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 ticka, ticka. And that's the short rhythmic ostinato you will hear several times repeated throughout Pigstep. What I like about teaching short rhythm patterns like this one is that they are very easy for kids to recognize and start picking up on in the music. And they're also very versatile in terms of different ways that we can perform them. So if you already have acquired certain rhythm instruments and you want your kids to perform the pattern on those, that's great. But even if you don't own anything like that, it can also be done through body percussion, such as clapping, patting, snapping, and so on. Or if you're really feeling crazy, make up some homemade instruments and see if your kids can perform this pattern. Now I want to show you how we can go from just performing the simple pattern to making it a little bit more challenging for our students and even turning it into a rhythm game. So the first thing that I would do is I would draw out or write out this rhythm pattern 4 times in a row, and I would give my students plenty of chances to practice it without stopping to make sure they really have the hang of it and they're able to count the rhythms correctly. Next, I'm going to take my eraser and maybe 1 or 2 beats in each line of rhythm, I'm going to erase those quarter notes or the 16th notes and replace it with a quarter rest. So the way that you can turn this into sort of a rhythm game is you could give your kids the challenge of, we're now going to look at the way the new rhythm is written. You're still going to perform it the same way as you did before without stopping. But if I hear anybody playing a sound when it's supposed to be a quarter rest, which is silent, then me, mom, or teacher is going to get a point. And if you guys can successfully perform the whole thing with the rest drawn in correctly, then you guys will get a point. So it's just a fun way to see if they can read and perform the rhythms correctly while also making it a little bit more challenging. I would say the way to make this activity the most challenging is to draw your repeat sign at the end of the rhythm pattern and just instruct the kids, you're going to keep repeating this as many times until I tell you to stop, but you don't have time to look at the drawing ahead of time. That means that actually while the students are performing their rhythms, you are constantly taking the eraser or the marker and you're either erasing those quarter notes or you're drawing them back in. So it's really a good way to keep them on their toes because again, they don't have much time at all to prepare. They have to constantly stay focused on the board and see when they're supposed to be playing and when they're supposed to be silent. The other type of musical activity that we can do with Pigstep is learning conducting signals and patterns. So again, if you have seen any of my previous videos, you know that I love to find activities that are very versatile and adaptable to different ages and skill levels. So for me, conducting is one of my favorite things to use. Let's say I'm going to do this with a very young group of students who are really just working on practicing keeping a steady beat, whether on their laps or on an instrument like the drum. Well, one of the foundational skills I want them to learn from an early age is watching the conductor and knowing the signals for when to start and when to stop. So I will show you here my little pig friend that I printed out in just a minute or so and taped him to my conducting baton. Because again, it's always more fun when they have something cute or silly to look at. But my pig friend here is going to actually help me keep the steady beat as I conduct my students. So I'm going to tell my students, you be watching my pig friend here, because every time he bounces up and down, that's showing you how to keep the steady beat on your instrument. But be watching especially carefully. As soon as you see his signal to stop, that means everyone needs to stop playing their instrument at the same time. Again, I know it seems very simple, but this is one of those foundational skills. It requires kids to keep their constant attention and focus on the conductor, so they make sure they know the correct time to start and stop playing. You can also do this where you have them divided into, let's say, 3 different groups of instruments. And I might even want to print out more of these pictures, but put a different character on each conducting stick. So let's say I have a pig on one, I have a sheep on another, and I have a chicken on the third one. That allows me to assign each group of instruments. You're going to watch the pig conduct your group, you're going to watch the sheep conduct your group, you're going to watch the chicken conduct your group. Now, I am controlling all 3 of those sticks at the same time, but we've added another level of understanding. Not only when am I supposed to start and stop, like with the rest of the group, but I also have to be watching for times when 2 groups might be playing together, or all 3 groups, or I'm just going to single out and signal to one group to play. Also, I'm going to put a link up here because I did an entire conducting video back in the fall that kind of outlines different ways to teach these skills to your students, so be sure to check it out. Now, what I just explained in that last activity meant that one person, me the teacher, or I could even call up a student to be the conductor, but only one person at a time is actually directing the music. Now for this final activity, we're going to actually flip it around to where we're giving all the different students in the class a chance to conduct together. This might seem a little bit confusing at first, the idea of conducting along with a recorded song versus conducting live musicians the way that we normally do. But I almost like to think about this as conducting in reverse. So let me explain what I mean by that. When I'm conducting a group of live musicians, obviously I do have control over changes in the music. So just based on the type of arm and hand motions that I'm using, they will watch me when my arm motions look really big like this. They know that they're meant to play loudly versus softly, or I can also change the speed of my hand motions to control the tempo of the music. Well, obviously with a recorded song, you have no control over those changes that might happen. So the way that this works, conducting in reverse, is you are going to allow all the kids or all the students to be conducting at the same time. If you want to give them one of these sticks, that's great, or they can just do it using their bare hands. But your instructions are for them to listen to what they hear in the recorded music and match their motions accordingly. This is a great way for you to assess different things about their conducting patterns. So as simple as, are they able to maintain the steady beat in their hands like they hear in the background recording? Because obviously the recording is not going to mess up, right? It's going to continue maintaining the steady beat, but we're watching to make sure that their hand motions are looking correctly. And also things like if they do hear changes in the music, times when it gets louder or softer or faster or slower, we're watching to make sure that they can show the appropriate hand gestures. So you might need to give them a little bit of coaching ahead of time. But one thing I always like to mention about this type of conducting activity is, especially if you're working with a lot of students at the same time, have them close their eyes while they conduct. One, it kind of helps them feel a little bit less silly and giggly about what they're doing. But also, you kind of try to limit them just peeking around to copy what everyone else in the room is doing. Now, we basically hear 2 different parts when we listen to the Pigstep recording. You do have that typical rhythmic ostinato that begins during the introduction and just gets repeated throughout the music. And then eventually, we start to hear a different instrument bring in the main melody. Ba-da-dun-dun. Dun, da, da, da. So the way you could handle this is you could assign 2 different groups of kids. You guys are going to conduct the rhythmic ostinato the whole time, and you are simply going to conduct the main melody of the music. But if you feel like your students are up to a challenge, you certainly could assign them to do both parts. This hand conducts the steady beat or the rhythm pattern, and this hand conducts the main melody. That is going to be a fun challenge for them and probably will result in quite a few giggles. That is a wrap on our Pigstep music disc. If you try any of these activities with your kids, let me know how it goes in the comments below. Or if you have any extra ideas to share, I would love to hear those as well. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy music making.